Is a little bit warm. What number is this, Sachin? Huh? Fan, put an AC a little bit because you were too crowded for the Hindi class. Otherwise, you can open the other door also, so there'll be like circulation. of air. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Krishna Goswami Prabhupada Shasarya Prakasha Vidursa Pacharam Kitavam Sadhu Bhagavat Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschacha Desatarine Om Jnana Tmirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksuron Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Dati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sujivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Paridhana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakambitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Visabhanu Sapede Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhya evacha Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Binda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from the Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 8, text number 8. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Abhyas Yoga Yuktena Chetasananya Gamina Paramam Purusam Divyam Yati Partanuchintayam Abhyasa Yoga Yuktena Chetasananya Gamina Paramam Purusam Divyam Yati Partanuchintayam. Somebody else? Abhyasa Yoga Yuktena Chetasananya Gamina Paramam Purusam Divyam Yati Parthanuchintayam
Abhyasa yoga yuktena Chedasananyagamina Paramam Purusham Divyam
Purusham Divyam
Yati Parthanuchintayan
Abhyasa Yoga Yuktena
Chedasananyagamina
Paramam Purusham Divyam.
Yati Parthanuchintayan
Mataji's Abhyasa Yoga Yuktena Chedasananyagamina Paramam Purusham Divyam Yati Parthanuchintayam. Somebody else?
Abhyasa yoga yuktena
Abhyasa Yoga Yuktena Chetasananyagamina Paramam Purusham Divyam Yati Parthanuchintayam. Word for word meaning, please repeat after me. Abhyasa Yoga, by practice. Yuktena, being engaged in meditation. Cetasa, by the mind and intelligence. Na anyagamina, without their being deviated. Paramam, the supreme. Purusham, personality of Godhead. Divyam, transcendental. Yati, one achieves. Partha, O son of Prita. Anuchintayam, constantly thinking of. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. He who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Partha, is sure to reach me. Please repeat after me. He who meditates on me, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Partha, is sure to reach me. Purport. In this verse, Lord Krishna stresses the importance of remembering him. One's memory of Krishna is revived by chanting the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna. By this practice of chanting and hearing the sound vibration of the Supreme Lord, one's ear, tongue, and mind are engaged. This mystic meditation is very easy to practice, and it helps one attain the Supreme Lord. Purusham means enjoyer. Although living entities belong to the marginal energy of the Supreme Lord, they are in material contamination. They think themselves enjoyers, but they are not the Supreme Enjoyer. Here it is clearly stated that the Supreme Enjoyer is the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his different manifestations and plenary expansions as Narayana, Vasudeva, etc. The devotee can constantly think of the object of worship, the Supreme Lord, in any of his features, Narayana, Krishna, Rama, etc., by chanting Hare Krishna. This practice will purify him, and at the end of his life, due to his constant chanting, he'll be transferred to the kingdom of God. Yoga practice is meditation on the super soul within. Similarly, by chanting Hare Krishna, one fixes his mind always on the Supreme Lord. The mind is fickle. Therefore, it is necessary to engage the mind by force to think of Krishna. One example often given is that of the caterpillar that thinks of becoming a butterfly and so is transformed into a butterfly in the same life. Similarly, if we constantly think of Krishna, it is certain that at the end of our lives, we shall have the same bodily constitution as Krishna. Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Abhyasa yoga yuktena chetasa nanyagamina paramang purusang divyam yati partanu chintayam. So the formula of how one can surely go back home, back to Godhead is mentioned in this verse, specifically to engage our mind in constantly remembering of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and to not be deviated from the path. So, two things that we need to do: meditate on the Supreme Lord within our mind. The mind cannot be vacant at any moment. Mind is always active, and sometimes it's called, not sometimes, all the time, chanchala, very fickle, like a monkey going from different tree to another tree and doing nonsense, doing their monkey business. This is in the contaminated state, of course. The mind is like this. The mind needs to be steady, needs to be fixed. Prabhupada says it's not possible to control the mind because it's always thinking of something, always desiring of something which is not going to help us to become Krishna conscious. This is in the conditioned state, of course. But in the purified state, the mind is peaceful because the senses are under fully control. And in this way, the person, that means the soul, will be able to always think of Krishna and always remember Krishna. So in the meantime, we're like a roller coaster going up and down, and it's scary, actually. You go to a roller coaster, you don't enjoy. Have you been to a roller coaster? You know what's a roller coaster, right? It's like, sometimes it goes like 360 degrees going around. Yeah, and sometimes also they had casualties because some mechanical failure. So if we don't control our mind, Bhagavad Gita says that it can be our worst enemy or it can be our best friend. So Prabhupada says the only way how we can control the mind is to chant Hare Krishna, to always think of Krishna. And Prabhupada mentions here in the purport how we can always remember Krishna. Memory. One's memory of Krishna is revived by chanting the Maha Mantra Hare Krishna. So the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is the means by which we can be delivered from the cycle of repeated birth and death, to get out of this material world, not to suffer again and again this miserable conditioned life. Especially if one perfected his life at the end of one's life, then he'll go back home, back to Godhead, and he will attain love of God. However, One need not to wait till the end of one's life to be perfect. One can be perfect even before death. As Prabhupada gave that example, we've heard this many times. Just like the fire emanates heat and light, and if you put an iron rod then to the fire, then it will act like a fire. If you take it out and you touch something, it'll burn. So similarly, when according to the Bhagavad Gita, how one can give up the material attachment is through constant practice and detachment from the material energy. Constant practice. Prabhupada gave in the purport. And also in the verse, not to be deviated. Na anya gamina. Hmm. We should be always engaged in meditation by the mind and intelligence and not to be deviated. That means we should be always focused. We should be always having this vision whereby we'll be able to attain, and a little bit of deviation, ah, one can have a very, very risky, dangerous situation. Uh, for the men, when they shave and you a little bit inattentive, if you move your, that happened to me one time. You're shaving and you move a little bit, then you'll get a cut. You'll get a cut. So similarly, when we practice Krishna consciousness through sadhana bhakti, Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, following the regulations given, regulative principles given by the previous acharyas, Srila Prabhupada, to be fixed, to be determined, then we'll be able to become solidly on the right path. And a little bit of deviation, that means a little bit of not following. We have to follow 100%. But in the beginning, it's very difficult. That's why Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says you cannot force anybody to become Krishna conscious. It comes out of its own accord. When one is ready to realize that I have nothing to do in this material world, I have to give up my material attachments. We have to give up ways whereby we are being entangled. And the best way how to disentangle ourselves is to chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Prabhupada emphasized a lot here. Through the sound vibration, the hearing and chanting of the holy name of the Lord, we are engaging our senses, especially our tongue, our ears. And in this way, it'll be very easy to practice it. The mind has to be focused in such a way, because the mind is always desiring something to be comfortable. The mind is always making plans how one can be peaceful and happy. But there is no way that one can attain this if the mind is focused or meditating on mundane subject matters. That's for sure. That's why the yogis, they can stay for a long time without eating. Their mind is so strong that even in the middle of winter, I've seen the Naga Babas in the Kumbh Mela, they don't have any shirts. The Agori Babas with skulls all over their body. Um, it's amazing. Everyone is like bundled up, but for them, they don't wear any clothes. They don't wear anything. And in the middle of summer, they will also have different items, like they will burn coals or wood around them, or these cow dung putties. They can put around, and that will increase the temperature over 150 degrees. And they will sit in the middle for so long. Oh, I've seen this one yogi full of thorns, and he was very, very careful. And he will lie down on the thorns. For one thorn prick our feet, I will be crying. We'll be jumping up and down. But their mind is so controlled in this way. And they're focused on the super soul. These yogis supposed to do. I don't know those Agori Babas. They focus on the super soul, but that is the goal of yoga. That is the goal of meditation, to focus on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, this function of the mind is thinking, feeling, and willing. That is the function of the mind. Never a moment that the mind will be idle. And therefore, if we wish to attain full satisfaction, it's called Atmaram. To be an Atmaram, one should meditate on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Constant practice. Practice, practice, practice. I'm going to quote a verse here from the Padma Purana. Nama parada yuktanam namanyeva haranti agham abhishranti prayuktani tani ibarta karuni cha. The chanting of Hare Krishna mantra is recommended for persons who commit offenses, because if they continue chanting, they will gradually chant offenselessly. Even if in the beginning one chants with offenses, one will become free from such offenses by chanting again and again. So the purpose is to chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra offenselessly, so that the full effect of the holy name will come about. Parrots, we can teach a parrot to chant Hare Krishna, but the parrot at the time of death, I don't think will be able to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Will remember Krishna. So if we commit offenses while chanting, and that is definitely in the beginning stage, is what you call Nama Aparad. There is Nama Aparad, Nama Bas, clearing stage, and then Sudanam. 3 stages in chanting the holy name. So, as mentioned here in the Padma Purana, even if one commits offenses while chanting, which we should avoid, that's why every day we are being reminded of the 10 offenses. We're being reminded not to do it, these 10 offenses. And even though one commits offenses, which is unavoidable in the beginning, we still should continue chanting. It says also that while chanting the holy name of the Lord, if one will not shed tears, that means our heart is still very, very hard. That means the chanting is not having this full effect due to different offenses. And the topmost, the grievous offense that one may commit is that to offend a Vaishnava or a devotee. and for that matter, anyone, anybody, even non-devotees. So we should be careful, not just dealing with the devotees, but we should be careful also dealing with the non-devotees. Otherwise, the offenses may pile up, and then we'll not be able to get rid of it. So if we commit an offense, especially to Vaishnavas, we should ask forgiveness to that devotee. Otherwise, there is no way one can get out of this material world. Srila Prabhupada specifically mentions here uh, that we should always think that we are servants. We may, from time to time, yes, think that we are enjoyers. Purusha. Purusha means enjoyer. But there is Param Purush. Param Purush, the supreme enjoyer. We're always going to be the servants. And Prabhupada specifically in the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, the mood is that of a child crying, asking for mother. Hmm. So when we chant the holy name of the Lord, it has to be in that mood that we're longing to have the Supreme Lord's protection, the Supreme Lord's mercy and blessings upon us. And if we are sincere, definitely soon we'll be able to realize that the holy name is none different than Krishna. Nama, Rupa, Leela. Nama, Rupa, Guna, and Leela. Yes, the qualities. Nama, Guna, Rupa, and Leela. The qualities, and then the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. That it will come about. That's why Prabhupada, when he was asked, "What do you think? What do you think when you chant the holy name of the Lord?" Prabhupada says, "You don't think of anything. Just try to hear the holy name of the Lord, the sound vibration." That's very important to understand because in the beginning stage, we cannot really appreciate the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. First, we have to know Krishna Tattva. That's why the Bhagavad Gita is Krishna Tattva. And then we can go to Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. That ultimately, in the purified state, we'll be able to understand these different name, fame, form, qualities, and pastimes of the Supreme Lord, and we'll be able to appreciate, relish the meditation, the different expansions of the Supreme Lord, like Krishna, Ram, Nrsimha, Varaha, Matsya, all of these different incarnations of the Supreme Lord. So the devotee can constantly think of the object of worship, the Supreme Lord, in any of his features. Supreme Lord has unlimited pastimes, and he's called in different names. So accordingly, we will be also attracted to the feature of the Lord within our heart. Some devotees, they like Gauranga, Nityananda. Some they like Nishingadev. Some they like Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra. Some they like Radha Krishna. But no one can say that, oh, Radha Krishna, yes, I can only worship Radha and Krishna. But if we're attracted, let's say, to Ram, there is a story in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. What's that? Murari Gupta. Murari Gupta is so attracted to Lord Ramachandra that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to convince him to worship Krishna. Yes, okay, I will worship Krishna. But the next day, back to Lord Ram. Back to Lord Ram. So each and every one of us, within our heart, we are attracted to a certain feature of the Supreme Lord that makes our life centered to Him only. And no one is greater or lesser. Everyone is equal in a sense. Otherwise, yes, one, when worshiping the Supreme Lord, as specifically instructed by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that we should follow in the footsteps of the inhabitants of Vrindavan in worshiping the Supreme Lord in his Trivanga form, in his three-bending form. Crooked. That's why he says the Brajabasis are crooked also, because their Lord is crooked. Crooked, not materially crooked, but it's very, very special form. Like Shama Sundar, they're like this. Krishna and Balaram, they're posed themselves in such a way that attracts the devotees. So much so that they don't have any other form of meditation except that form of the Supreme Lord. For those who are attracted to Gauranga, Nityananda, in their dancing form, the different forms of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, sometimes they're posed like this, hmm, or posed like this, or posed like this. There are different meanings into this. Or Srimati Radharani, she will give her blessings. In Toronto, she's holding like this. Her pose is like this. Mostly the pose of Radharani is like giving service to Krishna, like Sham. Yes? Radhe Sham. Radharani is like offering something to Krishna. Or in other temples, she's posed like this, giving blessings. Sitaram always like that. Have you seen different pose of Sitaram? No, it's always like that wherever we go. How about Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra? Always the same. But Gornitai, different poses, giving blessings or encouraging us to engage in the Sankirtan Yagya, especially in the age of hypocrisy, in the age of quarrel, to chant the holy name of the Lord. Um, so if somehow we practice, just saying in English, practice makes one perfect. Um, Even those who are in the topmost level of Krishna consciousness, to set an example, they also seemingly in the mood that they are practicing Krishna consciousness. But it is not the same mood. We are trying to become a devotee, but those devotees already, they think they're not devotees. And in the other spectrum, end of the spectrum, those who are in the beginning stage, they may consider themselves to be really, really advanced already. But it's not so. This is not the case of the pure devotees. They will think everyone is fully engaged except myself. I have nothing that I'm doing. Externally, they may be also performing just like person who is in the beginning stage of bhakti. But there is a big difference. They're on the other end of spectrum. Their mood is that of humility, not being proud, always in the mood of service. So, if we constantly be chanting, then we become purified. And ultimately, once we reach that purified stage, at the end of one's life, will be transferred to the kingdom of God. So Prabhupada mentions here also yoga, meditation of the super soul within. And the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra fixes one's mind always on the Supreme Lord. we meditate on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. This is the meditation of the devotees, because the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord signifies also that we take shelter unto Him, and we don't have any other recourse except to always feel helpless and always wanting to be protected by the Supreme Lord. Even though the pure devotee of the Supreme Lord, they are protected 100%. Mhm. So it is very important to understand that we don't have any other shelter except the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. And if the mind is always focused on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, ultimately Krishna will reward that devotee, pure devotional service. An example was given here, just like the caterpillar, they're always meditating, and the butterfly, and eventually, even in his lifetime, the caterpillar became a butterfly. So we should also be in that mood of purifying our senses, our mind being focused on the Supreme Lord's lotus feet, the beautiful form of the Supreme Lord, His smiling face, His transcendental form, and His pastimes. Chant always Hare Krishna, as Prabhupada says, whenever you have time, chant Hare Krishna. Unfortunately, we don't have days in chanting the holy name of the Lord. And sometimes we neglect to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So how can we go back home, back to Godhead, if this is the case? So the caterpillar is given here as an example. Always thinking of becoming a butterfly. So ultimately, if we meditate on the Supreme Lord and our spiritual master, one day the spiritual master, Lord Krishna, will reveal our eternal form in the spiritual world. This is only after becoming purified. So one need not to think, oh, I may be this, I may be like this, speculate what is our eternal form. It will come. We should only meditating that we are servants of the Supreme Lord and assist our spiritual master in serving the Supreme Lord. Then one day that eternal form will be revealed, and we will serve the Supreme Lord in that same body in the spiritual world. So if we constantly think of Krishna, it is certain at the end of our lives, we shall have the same bodily constitution as Krishna. Mentions in that 5 types of liberation, to have the same feature of the Supreme Lord, to have the same opulence as the Supreme Lord, to have the same planet, to stay in the same planet of the Supreme Lord. Like in Vaikuntha Loka, you cannot distinguish who is Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu and his servants. The only difference is that Lord Vishnu, Narayan form, four-arm form. Everyone has four-arm forms in the Vaikuntha. Is that Lord Narayan has also this Kaustuba, this Srivatsa, this silver streak of hairs on his chest. It's like when Ajamil saw the Vishnu Dutas, it's mentioned there that one can mistakenly think that the Vishnu Dutas, who are the servants of Lord Vishnu, is Lord Vishnu. Um, so one may have the same bodily features. That means also Chinmaya. In this spiritual world, that means in Goloka Vrindavan, there's only one Krishna. There's only one Krishna, and everyone is his servants. Everyone is trying to serve him. So in this way, the means and the end is a chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And in the end, when we become purified, we still continue chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. One will not cease chanting the holy name of the Lord, even in the spiritual world, in our spiritual forms. So our lives shall have the same bodily constitution as Krishna. Same body, features, that means Chinmaya, full of knowledge, bliss, and eternity. Same opulence. Sometimes the servants there, they enjoy more. And that is the case also, as we've heard in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that the gopis, they are blissful, more beautiful than Krishna. So many thousands of times. There's a competition. When they see the Lord's beautiful face, attractive face, their beauty also increases. I cannot remember how many thousands or millions of times. And then when the beauty of the gopis increases, Krishna's beauty also increases. He becomes blissful. And then when they see Krishna very blissful, their bliss or happiness increases more. So there's a competition. But it says that the devotees of the Lord, they feel great satisfaction in this way because Krishna becomes obliged to them because of their service. So the mind is fickle, and therefore it is necessary to engage the mind by force. Prabhupada used the word force. You have to force the mind in the beginning. But then it becomes natural. It becomes part of one's daily activities to always think of Krishna and never forget him. That's why it is very important to be 24 hours engaged in Krishna consciousness. And since I returned from my trip in the Philippines, it's like practical, I did not stop. I was telling Dharmatma Prabhuji, this is overwhelming. 4 times a day we'll have meeting, and then I will give class, and then what is this? There's no end. I told him, it is not a complaint. One should not be complaining if he is getting more service. The problem here is we don't want to do service. That is the problem. We're like, taking it casually. I was telling Dharmatma Prabhu, we're coming here. What? Tomorrow we're going to have a meeting. Like, how many meetings shall we get, But that is good because there is no gap where Maya can enter into. We should be actually thankful, isn't it? If it's like that. Otherwise, if you're only doing like 2 hours of service the whole day, then what do you do the whole day? Hare Krishna. If you're chanting the whole day, then that is good. But if you're sleeping the whole day and doing prajalpa the whole day, Hare Krishna, then how can you become like the caterpillar becoming a butterfly? How can we develop this body to turn into a spiritual body even before the time of death? Hare Krishna. Okay, we stop here. Akrura Prabhu is here. Any question or comment? Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Well, like when you say that we have to always think of the lotus feet of Krishna,
Yes.
how to understand this?
How to understand? That means we should be always in the humble position. We should be always like in the mood of helpless position. Uh, when we think, because you see, when you look on the lotus feet of the Lord, you're like bowing down. Of course, we also have darshan of the Lord's lotus face. That's why Prabhupada says we should start from the lotus feet and going up to different limbs of the body of the Supreme Lord until the smiling face, the all attractive smiling face of the Lord. Have you seen the servants, like big landlord, rich people? The servants don't look directly to the eyes. They're always like down, right? So we should train ourselves first in that way. Many prayers of the acharyas always talking about lotus feet of the Lord. Even Akrura, the Akrura, the uncle of Lord Krishna, when he first came to Vrindavan, he was meditating in the lotus feet, the marks, the markings of Lord Krishna's lotus feet. Krishna and Balaram, of course. Of course, he was thinking of Krishna, but when he saw the lotus feet imprints of Lord Krishna, that's it. He says, now I have attained perfection. Mhm. Mhm. Yes?
Thank you, Maharaj. When Srila Prabhupada said we have to engage our mind by force,
When?
Srila Prabhupada said we have to engage our mind by force
Yeah.
when it deviates. So how does that practically look in a way that we're not super strict and hard?
Engage the mind in?
By force.
What's that again?
By
By
force.
force.
By force, yeah. Well, yeah, so like, a child doesn't want to go to school in the beginning, isn't it? Did you have that experience? Oh, the kids, they don't want to go to school. They will cry. No, no, no. But the mother says, no, you must go to school for your own good in the future. You'll be able to, you will not have a good future if you don't go to school. So please, they will drag the child. And then when the child sees the school, oh, there's so many kids here. I will enjoy playing with them. The next day, the child doesn't have to be forced. The child will go there on his own. So in the beginning, yes, we have to force ourselves, get up early in the morning, get up by 3 o'clock, not 4 o'clock, you'll be late. It takes half an hour at least to prepare. So get up by 3:30. Okay, 3:30. Force ourselves to chant. We don't have taste for chanting, so to force ourselves to chant. Force ourselves to be in the Guru Puja. All these things is Vaidya Bhakti. We have to follow these regulative principles or regulated way of lifestyle. And later on, it becomes part of our life. You don't need to be woken up by alarm clock. Some devotees, they wake up even before the alarm clock gets off. Huh? We don't have to force ourselves to read Bhagavad Gita. We will relish Srimad Bhagavatam and many scriptures. Beginning where the mind doesn't want to do it. Where are you from?
New Zealand.
New Zealand, down under. Auckland,
Wellington.
Wellington. I have a good friend there. What's his name? Can't remember now his name. A tall one, kind of skinny. Anyway, I can't remember his name now. But yes. Any other points? One last question, Prabhu. Okay.
negative thoughts in the mind keep
Negative thoughts comes into the mind.
very much often. Irrespective
Welcome
of
to the club. We're all like that. We're all like that.
how to overcome this.
How to work on that? You have to, what's that? Transform your negative thoughts to Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada used the word what? Dovetailing. Dovetailing. Dovetail. So, yes, the contaminated state is like that. Um, the only difference between those who are having their mind controlled is that, and to those who are not having their mind under control, is that they know how to say no. Maya is always attracting us in too many things not to be Krishna conscious. Sannyasis should know how to say no. That's why you have to be detached to material things. Okay? How to say no? Only to Krishna. It's like this morning, I was doing kirtan, and there's one boy is misusing the microphone. He was saying, "Hello, hello." And then I says, "No hello, only Krishna." Okay? Srila Prabhupada K.
Yeah.
So don't go away. Akurura Prabhu is here. Very important. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's travels to Vrindavan. Jai. Hari Om Tat Sat. Dhanyavad. Hari Hari. Hare Krishna.